I think every teacher needs to become a barefoot mental health
100%. I think
counselor.
this needs to be a part of the training to become a teacher. This has to be there because you are what you're doing is, genuinely creating a mind, right? From scratch. You're feeding it behavior patterns, you're feeding it emotions, you're giving it direction to grow. And you need to know if you're doing the right thing, if you're doing it in the best way possible.
Hello and welcome to Will Talks podcast. Today I have an amazing, absolutely amazing guest, Anika Beri. Anika Beri is actually a trained professional architect. And from architecture, she moved on and she got into various entrepreneurial initiatives. She set up a company called Skillery and then she built an AI based therapy app called Clear Mind Plus. And that's how I actually got in touch with her. And I am so amazed. And as I started talking to Anika, I realized that one of her gifts and passions is tarot reading and astrology. She's also trained and certified in both tarot reading and astrology. And that I think is incredibly powerful because we are letting things evolve at this podcast. So I think this podcast may be different, may be more spontaneous and way more real than you'd probably expect. So tag along with us today. This is going to be a conversation between two very cool and interested people trying to unpack and uncover so many different sciences and the art of, let's say, tarot reading, and maybe even how it works with education and schools. Anika, thank you so much for being here. How are you feeling today?
I am so excited to be here, Will. And thank you so much for that introduction. I think I was just smiling because I don't think I've ever been introduced like that. And yeah, I wish I matched that energy of yours.
Brilliant. So you call yourself a clarity coach. You have this really high rating on Google for tarot reading. Tell me more. Tell me more about tarot reading. Tell me more about how does an architect who who goes from structure to what is this? Is there
Yes.
structure in this?
So, as an architect, I was a very bad student, which means that I was a bully in class and I was a big time skeptic. So my tarot journey started to really bully my classmates. And I used to sit in library, sit there for hours and have this deck in my hand that just ordered on Amazon. And I started reading for these people who were queuing outside the library, where I just told them that, hey, you know what? You are going to fail in design, or you're going to not do good in this, and this professor is going to probably yell at you for just very specific details just for fun. And then what really happened was everything that I was saying started coming true for them. Every little detail. If I could just say, I predicted someone is going to flunk an exam, they unfortunately did. But if I predicted that this person is going to top this particular subject, they did. And, it was all fun and games until one day when I started reading for my family friends. And there was this one family that came to my house for dinner. And, I did not have any, uh, kya bolte say, I did not know how to read tarot. So I just had this deck. I started predicting for them, saying that, you're going to meet with an accident with your wife next to you. Yeah, I was very blunt with whatever's coming to my mind. And you're probably going to survive, but it's going to be really bad for you. And I just went back to my room, right? And they're like, what? So after a few days, I went back to my class, to my college. My college was in Nasik. And I get a call from my dad, and he's like, come out of your class. Why? He's like, he wants to talk to you. And he was at the hospital, my dad's friend. And he's like, exactly what you said happened. I am with my wife in the hospital. Tell me what to do next. And I'm just like a third year student, who's just flunking exams. And I'm like, what do I do next? So that is when my parents called me back home and they're like, listen, you either take this seriously or just drop it off completely. Don't play with people's lives and, you just don't do that. And that is when I realized I started studying more through, self study. And then I realized I need to pursue this as an art. And I had no one around me who believed in tarot or who even heard of tarot. So it was very new to me. That's when I went to Delhi. I took a degree in tarotology, where I understood the art, the history, and how people over the time have evolved using this art form. And this art form is very spiritual in nature. It has very intrinsic details about multiple religions that come together, including Hinduism, including Christianity, all of them, they come together. And it's been spread worldwide over the years through gypsies because they were travelers. This started moving in different countries, and it started as a game for courts, kings, and queens to entertain them. And then later in the 16th century, it became a prediction tool. That is how, people started adding the details and nuances to it. So my mind was blown because I was just suddenly, from a person who was studying architecture, I was, you know, greeted with this beautiful wide world of fantasy and I wanted to learn more. And I started reading genuinely for people without charging money, but it just kept coming back at me. Tarot just kept pulling back. And so I went deeper into astrology. And 2 years later, I got my degree in astrology. And yeah, so then I became Vedic astrologer. Now I combine the elements of spirituality, of religion, of, our past ancient history to help people feel better, in whatever is the easiest way of communication to them, what they understand, but using these elements subtly, in the back end. So yeah.
This is this is so interesting. I mean, as an educationist myself, I'm always amazed to know how people choose their calling, how people end up doing something that they really love doing. Because there's this whole idea that students, as they grow up, they just have no idea what they want to do. And uh, typically we hear a lot of parents say, if you don't know what to do, engineering kar le. Uske baad you'll get some idea of what you want to do. And there's this beautiful song called The Sunscreen, and they say, in that song there's this line which says, some of the most interesting people even at 40 don't know what they want to do.
Yeah.
you know and that just opens up this whole conversation around destiny, right? It opens this idea that is there a destiny? Is there a guaranteed path that someone has written for me, or is it something that I'm actively working on? Is it something that I can work on? There's this quote that comes to mind saying that when you reveal the destiny to a man, he then has none.
Whoa.
Versus there's another quote that juxtaposes that particular quote, which says that a man finds his destiny as on the way as he's avoiding it. And these are just so two contradictory things.
Different.
What do you know and feel about yourself as a person now that you've done, let's say, tarot, the sciences, and Vedic
That is
astrology?
an absolutely beautiful question. And I love the way you articulated it. So, and I had the same question because, like I said, I started as a skeptic, right? Say, if I started as a believer, it was very easy for me to learn things and then start charging for them. But I never, until 2 years before, I didn't feel comfortable charging for what I was doing because I always thought that, does this even make sense? I'm a science student, I've graduated, I've studied so many books around that. And that is when I decided to do astrology, right? And both the things are very different. So in astrology, it says, even if you take any religion per se, right? It would always say that a man's destiny is written, a man's destiny has to be followed, and it will reveal itself. But the journey will reveal itself, but the destination is final for everyone. But spirituality, on the other hand, is more about uncovering as you move, right? So there are different school of thoughts with different understanding of things. And it's good that you speak of education because my previous startup, which was Skillery, right? I understood that education of how we know it today should not be this structured. And that came from my personal experiences that I did something and I was so good at it. Like I could, I got recognized for something as tarot that I could not have had this exposure to ever. And that is when skillery, I was so passionate for it because I used to be I was a video jockey for a small company that offered free food and stay, and I just had to go and host these things, right? So I'm like, hey, I love this job and I get money and I get to travel the world. Cool. And that is when I met fellow skilled people who probably weren't good at studies, but they were so good at what they were doing that it blew my mind, right? They were absolute good performers. They were good at some other skill that we would have not heard of. So that's when Skillery came into picture, which was a platform where I wanted experts from each of these skills, curate them, start from India, and then let people discover Skillery based on their interests. And we started with traditional skills and yeah, I wanted to bring about a difference in education, not probably change the entire architecture of it, but just bring that difference, because architecture honestly helped me in college, but it did not do anything outside of it. I don't think I'm a very structured person. I don't think if you ask me to kya RCC slab ka kya hota hai, I'll be like, okay, bye. But if you
I'm glad you're not making buildings.
yeah, yeah, my dad jokes about it. He just comes in like, even today, he'd be like, "Kya height hai iska? Kya ye hai? Kya ki-" Why would you do that to me? Don't put that pressure on me. So I think parents also have this thing, right? Like, why are you not an architect? Like now, yeah, you just meet people who are still like, you progressed in a career, but they would still compare to what you graduated in. So that was the idea behind career.
It's almost like the graduation you do is your destiny, and you're supposed to kind of grow into that destiny.
Never the case, especially now, because there's so much exposure, there's so many options, and I don't think that should be the case. And that uh, it's there's going to be an evolution very soon around this.
I'm glad your parents actually gave you that kind of belief,
Yeah.
right? They said, "Karo ye tarot."
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
They have been an incredible support to me since day one. Like I can't tell you how blessed I am to have them as parents, because it's tarot. For God's sake, anyone who's watching this would know what I'm talking about, right? And for them to first believe, they didn't believe in tarot, right? I didn't believe in tarot, तो वो तो बहुत दूर की बात है. For them to tell me that, okay, now we know it's a gift. Now we know that something's happening. To push me to this direction where I didn't know that direction, to allow me to do it is the second thing. And then even today, they're more proud of me as a tarot reader, than my struggles in clear mind and etc. that I tell them. They're like, okay, but this is something that you've crafted from the scratch, and you have seen, blood, sweat, tears around this. It's not a ready-made template. So you should be more proud of being the highest rated on Google. And, you should have that at the back of your mind. They don't bring architecture now, so I think that parents play an important, incredible role in
So,
choosing.
so when your parents say that you have a gift in tarot, what exactly is that gift in tarot? What is that gift?
Have you ever heard of tarot?
Yes, I see it right now.
Okay, so tarot is simply a deck, right, with beautiful pictures in them, intrinsic pictures of. But इसमें कोई शक्ति नहीं है, right? A lot of times we have this cobweb around tarot and such things that you want to stay away from it because you feel that ये बताएगा कि मैं मरने वाला हूँ. And that's a common belief that it's going to tell me something that I don't want to hear. So I'm very skeptic about it. I don't want to get into this. But tarot is a tool. जैसे एक saw होता है, right? It could be used to kill a person. It could be used to build a dam. It could be used for anything. Similarly, tarot is a tool. So how you use it is, how it works. So how it works is it works on a principle called collective consciousness that was coined by a physicist called Carl Jung. So what he said is that we're all in this collective consciousness, like take it as a cloud, like a storage of all the past patterns of all the people who have lived in the past. And that means that, your DNA, right? एक बच्चे को अगर तुम अंधेरे में बंद कर दोगे तो उसको थोड़ा डर लगेगा या उसको ऊंचाई से डर लगेगा. This is all hard coded in your DNA. Similarly, tarot works on patterns, which means that nothing that you do right now is so new that it has not been done in the past. We're all always working in patterns. Could be a different frequency, right? There are frequencies in physics also. There are different energy levels. Could be a different frequency, but the pattern is always going to be the same because energy cannot be created or destroyed.
Destroyed.
Right? So it works on energy. So how it works is uh, very detailed pictures, right? So what I do is you spread. This is called a spread. There are 78 cards. One section of it is major arcana, which means that these are karmic lessons. You have to, every individual has to go through these lessons. And the other 56 are minor arcanas, which means, like, say, today's podcast could reflect in a minor arcana. That's a small thing. And what it does is it reads your subconscious mind and kind of understands what you are going through, which phase in life you are in, so that you get more insight about what to do next. So it opens multiple doors, especially for when you're stuck, or especially for when you're confused or you're low on energy or low on frequency. It'll open that window for you. So, yeah,
So, I mean, what kind of people come for a
you'd
tarot?
be surprised.
Who are they? I was talking to a wonderful hypnotist
Mhm.
once, and I was asking him, "So, how do you end up hypnotizing people?" And one of the things he told me was most of the people who eventually come for a stage public hypnotism program are really coming there to be hypnotized. And there's this big idea of suggestibility, incredibly big idea of suggestibility. Is there something that suggestibility comes into play here? Who are the kind of people who come? What have you noticed about how many people would you have probably read for if you had to throw a number?
8,000 in the past 9 years. So,
8,000.
yeah, these include stalls, these include people coming in groups, etc., and one-on-one sessions. So we've done at least 5,000 one-on-one sessions during this tenure, and yeah, it's
And this is what it could be like 10 minutes, 15, 20 minutes.
yeah. So I prefer not to have a 15-minute or a 10-minute session, because I feel tarot is a life changing game, right? Because what I'm doing for you at that time is rewiring your subconscious mind, kind of showing you a mirror to your deeper self that, hey, this is what will is. Now tell me where you want to go, right? We have this option. And if you go here, this is going to happen. If you go here, this is going to happen, because remember patterns, right? So it's such an incredible tool that I don't want to rush the person and be like, oh yeah, 30 minute ka tumhara paisa ka do. It has to be a tool that changes that person's life. And yeah, so the kind of people who come to me are, it's 50-50, by the way. It's not more women, or, that's again a stat that people expect, but it's everyone comes. And the mostly
Do
problem,
people expect more women to come?
yeah. Isn't
Oh,
that, yeah, I mean, that's because, ye sab to auraton ka kaam hai. No, that's a belief. But that's not true. Another thing is there's a stigma around it, right? So people are not very comfortable sharing that I've gone to a tarot reader. I have read for a gangster in Singapore. I've read for billionaires. I've read for people, running finance companies. And I've also read for people who are, working, trying to change jobs. And I've read for my aunts, maids, everyone, like everyone, house help, and all sort of people who come. But the kind of questions that they have are so similar in nature, you know, that it just makes me trust this more, because that's the point, right? That whatever life you're living, you're going to go through cycles that are going to be very, very similar in nature. And that is our beauty as humans, right? I can understand the empathy comes from shared emotion, that shared consciousness.
what are people asking you? What are the common threads
So
that you see
let's start
people?
with you, shall we? Let's see, if you were to come to a reader. You're nervous?
If
If you were to come to a reader, what would be your, be honest about it? What would be your first? You don't have to be very personal, but let's say, you know, a third degree question. What would it be?
uh, I'd probably come for some reassurance.
Okay.
I'd probably come to spend some time thinking and talking to somebody who does not know me.
Interesting.
and that probably gives me the safety to understand that perhaps this person is being objective, or perhaps this person doesn't have any context, and it might just allow me to begin a conversation. I think it might allow me to begin a conversation because from my worldview, a lot of change has to be done
From within.
from within, and sometimes there's just so much clutter,
Exactly.
and you start like, I think I can do everything, and hence I might not be doing anything. And especially, as you know, my mom has been an incredible anchor to me, right? So you know, all through your life as you grow up, I start feeling like this constant need for having an anchor. And then you start thinking, as I start processing my thoughts, I need something to anchor. I need something to, someone to talk to, and somebody to process my feelings, because everybody works differently, I guess.
Right.
I'm a talker. So I think I would come to a reading not to be read to, but to be listened to. I think, I don't know. I'm not with a reader, right?
No, that's a good perspective. You use the word clutter, and that is what most people come for. People, when they come, there are four sections in tarot, right? The wands, the pentacles, the cups, and
the the wants.
the wands, they represent your career or your passion, what you're really, really passionate about, what really ignites that fire in you, right? Then you have the cups. The cups are all your relationships, which are could be with your family, your extended family, your social circle, and all of that. And then there are the swords, which is your mind. How do you really think, and who you are when nobody's watching? And how does your really mind work? That is an important aspect of you making decisions and choices, right? And then there is pentacles. You've come in life, you need to work to sustain, right? There is this, and the currency that we have is money right now, but this currency could change and evolve and be something else later, right? Thanks to Sam Altman. So, yeah, and that is the beauty of tarot, that it covers a holistic approach to life. But what it gives you in return is clarity. And that is why Clear Mind was born out of this concept. Because what I observed from all my reviews and everyone who, after the session, I have this, how are you feeling? And the one thing that I heard again, if there was this, cut, 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 kya bolte usko? Sab jod ke. It was like clarity, clarity, clarity. And I'm like, this is it, what it's doing, it's not elevating you spiritually. It's not telling you that, hey, this is your future. It's not telling you, you just become so empowered to make a choice for yourself that that noise shuts down suddenly. And these are the principles that I've kind of learned through my experience over the years and implemented in Clear Mind. And Clear Mind is a platform which does not directly involve spirituality or religion, because I've seen the stigma that that space has, but I genuinely want to build something that helps them with the same principles, So that's the approach now. I'm just trying to do something that I believe in without scaring the samne wala person. So, yeah.
I want to talk about Clear Mind and all the amazing stuff that you're doing with artificial intelligence and marrying, I think, therapy and mental health and wellness with artificial intelligence. But before that, I want to focus a little bit more about how you. I I notice you keep referring to tarot as a tool,
Mhm.
and I love that. Like, I love to hear that, and I think that is something that makes me comfortable, because as a
Mhm.
teacher,
Makes
as an
sense.
educator, I start feeling I understand the value of teaching aids, the value of tools, the
Mhm.
value that a physical manifestation of something brings to a space. And what what do you think about that? Why
Very.
why do you use the word tools? Is there anything
Yes.
that comes to mind?
So I
Because
use.
I'm kind of imagining like a tarot reader is in a dark room with smoke and
The ball,
the
the
balls, the
magic
crystal
ball.
ball, and all that going on,
Yeah.
and here you're talking about it so so scientifically. I just feel that
Yeah.
that there's more to it.
Definitely. So, to address that, let's take three personas. Okay. You give me any three personas, and we would read for these virtual personas, imaginary personas, and we'll see how these people can really use tarot to gain clarity. Right. So, since you are, an educator, let's take an educator here.
Yeah, like a teacher.
Okay. Like a teacher.
Okay.
All right. So, now this teacher, what problem do teachers have?
So uh, mm, I'll take a specific example straight away, right?
Yeah.
So I don't want to generalize. Straight away, this is a persona. She's about, let's say, 33, 34 years old, married 5 years, has two kids at home, a husband, lives with in laws. Husband not doing very well.
Hmm.
She suddenly is doing a lot of the heavy lifting in the family. Yet the husband doesn't give her the respect that she, in a way, deserves and needs,
Hmm.
because she's actually doing the heavy lifting.
Hmm.
And yet the husband is expecting that she goes to school after he leaves and comes back before he comes and makes sure that the food is set and everything. So many things going on like
Yeah.
that. And the mother-in-law and the father-in-law also expect a certain amount of things. And in some houses, I've actually heard some of my teachers say, "हमको दिन में 70 chapati banana padta hai." I've actually heard that. I've heard students say that they wake up in the morning, like 9th standard and 10th standard students wake up in the morning at 5 o'clock and make chapati and help their parents. So I've heard these things, and I know that these things are real. Um, and there's mounting expenses. So I feel like among all this, then if you're in a school that believes in innovation and technology, then they're always pushing you. They're always pushing you to go beyond. They're always pushing you to become this thing. So I'm kind of thinking like, here's a teacher who's really trying to just stay afloat.
Very, very real. I just feel like I know this person. So, okay, let's see how we can really help her using tarot to empower herself and just be better. Okay. So, first card that we pick usually would be about her current energy. What is the state that she is in? And then what are the next three steps that she can do? Right. Now, let the tarot be the guide. So, I'm not going to go more into the details of the question. Right. So, what I did here is first is the energy card.
Mm-hmm.
Very accurate.
Mm-hmm.
Queen of Cups, which is the card of a mother, right? So she is a mother who has made her entire life this cup. You see the cup? Like she's holding it on it so tightly that she doesn't realize it, that she's floating in the water. She's leaving the land, right? So she's so much into her relationships. I told you cups are relationships, that she's not paying attention to herself, right? So we understood the energy of that person. First thing tarot does is it reflects who you are, what you are to you, and you immediately feel hurt. You immediately feel like there's something that I know is happening, and this is giving me that reassurance. So that's the first energy card for her. Now we're going to pull what are the next three steps that she can take to feel better. Tarot is also very brutal at times. Okay, so it's like I have this conversation. Like, sure, you want me to say that to them? So okay, um, this is the card of self-respect that showed up here. Five of Swords. You see the card? Can you see the card?
Mm-hmm.
The camera? Yeah. So you see how these people have lost the sword. इसकी ईगो में, ठीक है? इसने जंग नहीं करी, but इसने बोला कि मैं जीतूंगा और उसने तलवार छोड़ दी, right? So she did not fight for herself. She just gave in to the situation and the surrounding. In her case, the husband. And that is clear with the King of Cups, the husband, right? Now, the husband is not bad. The husband has responsibilities because the king always has responsibilities. So the king is focusing on the kingdom. वो घर के अंदर झाँक के नहीं देखता है. वो ये देखता है कि बाहर क्या हो रहा है, right? So I won't say that the husband is bad, but it's the situation where it's asking her to pick up the sword, stand for yourself, pay attention to your self-respect because the sword is the mind. You need to first stay with your, ground yourself in your own being. And then comes the Empress, self pamper. This is the card of feel like the queen. You need to really believe in who you are, what you are, and you are the empress, right? So kind of empowers you in that direction, that why are you not doing this? And it's not blaming anyone. The tarot will never say. Sometimes it does with the major arcana, but it would always give you actionable steps to do what you can do. If this is your karmic lesson, so how to navigate the same lesson. So that's the empress, and the outcome is the high priestess for her, which is the card of, higher graduation in her career. So this is so related, right? If she's standing for herself in her personal life, she's graduating in her career. She's moving a ladder, up a ladder, because what she needed was that empress thing to really shine through in her workspace. So,
I mean, this is so powerful and it is so beautiful. And I say that because, let's say as a school leader, you're responsible for the 100 or 200 people who work on your team. You're not only responsible for their professional performance, but you're also responsible for their personal transformation,
right.
right? And if no one's going to be really good professionally unless personally they have it together.
Yeah.
I love the way that you say that tarot is designed to start a conversation. Tarot is designed to instantly build a connect.
Yes.
Because you talk about, a rational motive behavior therapy, or you talk about any of the talking therapies that are available. You spend hours and hours trying to. That's why they say there's a sofa come
Yes.
bed or something,
Yes.
or a lounger, in a psychologist's office, because there's so much talking happening, and all that talking goes towards building context. But
Exactly.
I think tarot just allows you to just
And
get
you know
this straight.
why that happens?
Why?
Because there is additional tool here that the other behavioral techniques don't have, which is belief. Even a non-believer in front of the cards, because like I said, right, you are hardwired in a way to have trust in the higher power, no matter how much ever. Even if you claim yourself as a skeptic or non-believer, etc., you're still believing in skepticism, right? So that belief is so powerful that you're truly vulnerable in front of the cards. Not just cards. You go to a temple, you go to a church. If you just enter it, whether you believe it or not, you would start thinking about your sins. You would start thinking about the good things you do, right? It's that power that it brings along with it. So I think that angle, we've lost touch with that over the years. We've been so practical in nature that we've forgotten that we still, science doesn't know how people are born, how babies are born. There is no, we can probably make things around it, but how did the Big Bang happen? What was behind the Big Bang, right? Like these are questions that people still talk about. But I feel there are some things that are left unsaid. And the moment you have faith, you've won half the battle, because I just need to navigate this. I don't have to create something, you know?
I, what really hits me really well in this whole thing is this idea that there's so much of non-violence here. There's so much of hope in this story. Like everything you say, that the tarot card brings to the front is about what you can do, what power you have,
Exactly.
what initiative you can take, what agency you have, right? I mean, that is something that I'm able to see here. It's not like I'm going to somebody and going to get a talk down to, right? Or it's not a place for me to feel guilty, but it's an invitation for me to take ownership and do something.
Ownership, right?
Mm,
Because you are your own savior in the end.
mm,
You cannot really depend on anyone. And, even as a kid, you know that 24 hours in a day, for 16 hours a day, you're not going to be with your caretaker. And you have to, and that's learned through behavior, that's learned through experiences. How can we really empower them to be on their own? And I feel tarot can do a wonderful job in making people self-resilient, self-reliant.
just that idea of self resilient and self reliant and all that. Imagine if a school principal is open to this
It's a
idea.
dream.
Yeah, just open, right? Just open to the idea that there are multiple personas in your staff room. Just open to that idea that there are multiple personas, not multiple problems, but multiple personas
Yes.
in your staff room, and there could be, you need to find efficient, quick, fast, effective, high converting you know methods to get all of them to perform at a higher level. I think deep down, everyone wants to be heard, everyone wants to be understood, everybody wants to be acknowledged, everybody wants to be seen,
Yeah.
right? And if this is the way for us to, if this helps us, like, make a stronger team, build a stronger culture, create a stickier environment, create an environment where people want to thrive and flourish and do well, I mean, everybody knows the power of a teacher for their child. And this is what I wanted to ask you next. It may not be the cards as much as the conversation I have with you, which means, imagine a teacher having this attitude, this perspective, this world view, right? Like what you have, or what many tarot readers or good tarot readers would have. That the person who comes to me today may be in temporary problems, but has the power and the resources and the resourcefulness to be able to overcome any problems that they
Yes.
have. Imagine if all teachers looked at their own kids like that, looked at their kids with belief, looked at their kids as people who are just kind of, are finding their way. Do you think it would make a big difference?
It's
What?
just bringing a grin on my face, but just thinking of the power that it can have, you know. And I think we just one step away from really inculcating that value of tarot is a tool. The tool could be anything else, but it's just an extensively built tool. So why not use it? And I feel that it's more about really understanding what are your inner strengths as a teacher and how can you leverage those. And instead of competing with everyone else as schools or as teachers, educators, what is that one USP that you have? And once you identify that, you can identify the next steps to leverage that, you know. And I think that's another good use case for schools in terms of identification.
Do you know that there's this whole idea in schools about about what is the max that a child could do? Do you know that? There's actually this thing, like a small
Like an
traders.
aptitude test.
It's not even like an aptitude test. It's more like I mean, I'd love to see tarot seen as an assessment.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, sure.
correct, right? The assessment
Let's
of my.
do an example.
We'll do an
It's just
example too, right?
yeah.
But I'm also thinking that there are so many people who say this. I don't know अगर आपने ये सुना है, but अरे पढ़ लिख के क्या करेगा, आगे जाके डैडी का गले पे ही बैठना है, right? या तो यही बिजनेस चलाना है, या तो यही करना है. And the belief that they have in, I don't know if you've experienced this, I'm sure you probably haven't, but some families invest more in a particular gender of children and send them to a more expensive school. And sometimes it's not only about gender, it's also about when a parent thinks कि मेरे दो बच्चे हैं, ये एक बच्चा थोड़ा ज्यादा स्मार्ट है तो उसके ऊपर मैं इन्वेस्ट करूं, may not be gender, okay, but someone's taken that decision for that child, and that's going to change the destiny of that child. Do you think that, I mean, what do you think? What do you think about uh, the destiny of a child from a learning perspective in that 10 years? Is it equitable? Is there equity in that? Um, you know, what are some of the things that we should, as principals or as teachers, what do you think we should stop doing, start doing, or continue doing? Anything. And I know, you're not a teacher, but you've met 8,000 people.
Yeah. I actually have come across this idea because I see a lot of parents coming to me, right? And the fifth question usually is about their kids, where they are asking about, either it's a situational question that this girl of mine is troubling me a lot. She's probably 7 or 8 and is not listening to me. And then there's this other girl or a boy. He's nice. He's a nice kid, etc. But I can't concentrate on like parental problems, right? And we use tarot to really identify what and why is she doing what she's doing, right? And in psychology, we have these techniques called CBT and etc. Like what you mentioned. But in tarot, we identify why she sent here first. If the person is a believer, I use these terms. But otherwise, I kind of try to structure it in a way where you need to know the strengths of your kids to be a good parent. You need to know it. You need to know the weaknesses more than the strengths, that this is not something that I'm ever going to make them go through. You need to know that what is that one situation that brings so much joy to them, and how can I use it in a way that gives them the pentacles in the card, which is financial stability in the long run, right? So all of these are responsibilities of a caretaker, a parent, or a teacher, which kind of I have seen that people ignore, because there's so much pressure of being a teacher or being a parent also, that this is a set book that you need to learn, this is a set rule of things that you need to know. In that fight, you forget that your kid is a human being and they have their own needs which are very different to yours. So yeah, if we have together helped people understand how can you really parent this, and they're poles apart. Most of the times the kids are so poles apart that the techniques used for parenting are very different. And I feel that when I speak about destiny of a particular kid, I think that I still believe that it's in your hands. I still believe, despite studying and etc. Because I've seen so many cases in my lives where people have definitely changed what was in the cards or what was written for them, and that was because there was this willpower that was above everything else, and that made them want to get it more than anything else, more than astrology kundli mein jo aa raha.
So, which actually means that people coming to you are also seeking for change.
Yes.
They're seeking for making impact. They're seeking for solutions, and then they suddenly hear something very invigorating, very motivating, very inspiring, very action
Yeah.
focused. And I think that probably makes a big difference. How did you get into this clear mind AI tool? And would you want to share a little bit about that now or later? But I'd really be very keen to understand, because mental health and well-being is a really big problem and is becoming a massive problem. But before that, I want to ask you, out of those 8,000 people that you probably spoke to, how many of them were school going children?
How many of them were school going children? I think read for none actually.
None, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It's
They were all
beautiful
18
because
plus.
it kind of looks like children don't seem to have problems, or they have problems and there's nowhere to go.
Yes. Yes.
Do you think they don't have problems, or do you think they have problems and there's nowhere to go?
I think, in fact, we still have sources and people and places to go to. But I don't think that they even know what they're going through to even identify it as a problem and then go somewhere else.
So you mean like children? No, this is while I'm talking to you, I'm also kind of realizing that, wait, did we build ourselves a community which solely depends upon parents to build the well-being, the mental well-being of a child? Because I don't think the school teachers focused on that. I think the school teachers focused on the scholastic development of a child, should be focused on the mental well-being of the child as well. But are you saying, or rather, are we discovering that children have no place to go?
No. So I definitely feel that children have no place to go except the parents. It's the first interaction of the child. And the second, even in tarot, the third number is the institution, which is the school. So in tarot, we have numeric movements, and the first is the birth, the second is parents, and the third is institution, which means that you learn from these sources. And if any of them are faulty or not giving you the kind of tools that you need, the progression kind of decreases. So, emotional well being is very neglected, especially in schools, Indian schools, especially. I've changed 5 schools personally because of my dad getting transferred. And I was a very anxious kid throughout my life. I was the most quiet kid, and I didn't know whom to go to, whom to speak to. And I realized that is a common thing in every student, feeling something, whether it's stage fright, whether it's wanting to make new friends, whether it is, not being good in an exam, but still being pressured to perform. And we kind of just brush it away. So I think,
Is that why friends are so important for children? Do you think friends are the support system for children? Do you think children are using other children to solve big mental health problems?
I feel that there is a lot of social pressure on kids. It's a lot more than us adults, because we've learned some tools to be alone. We know how to be in our own self. But the children, after their parents, they only meet these social people that they want to impress. And every time as a parent, you don't realize that you do things that the child doesn't want the outside world to know. And that kind of embarrasses them in a way. And that has a long term impact. So even when therapy, a lot of times you would pull it back to childhood trauma. You would always pull it back to, hey, you know what? This comes from an issue that is in the past. And that is something that, people in adulthood deal with, right? So if we can tackle it when it is just forming, when the trauma is just forming, you don't really have to deal with all these difficulties as a grown up. But I think that's
I
something
don't
that
think
people,
they grow up.
the inner child
I
is
think it's
always.
I think they're just broken children. I think as a system we might I think principals need to think about broken children, right? Anything that, because if 8,000 adults are coming to you,
Mm,
right? There, it just shows that there's so many things that schools need to do from a mental health and well-being perspective.
yes.
Um, one of my friends was telling me there are no academic problems in school. There are only emotional problems. An academic problem could be, oh, पढ़ाई में मन नहीं है. I mean, think about it. मन नहीं है, तो मन कहाँ है?
Mm,
मन कहीं और है. मन कहीं और क्यों है? क्योंकि ये हुआ. ये क्यों हुआ? क्योंकि वो हुआ. And then you start realizing that our schools may not be equipping children with the tool set, the mindset and the tool set that they require to truly succeed.
yeah.
And I think this, with more tech, there's less connection. The emotional connection time has reduced. The face time has reduced. I always used to think why Apple called it FaceTime. It's actually because in psychology, they say it's a very pertinent concept to have FaceTime,
Mm.
to have FaceTime with people, to build connection, to form a bond. Yeah, call FaceTime.
So you are a parent, and how has your journey been with? Sorry, but I'm just very curious about this. How has your journey been with crafting your children's emotional
Incredibly hard.
well-being?
Incredibly hard.
What
Incredibly
has been the topmost challenge?
explaining. I do a lot of mansplaining, explaining. Yesterday's example, I asked my wife if she'd care to join me for a game of squash, and my elder daughter said, "What squash?" And my younger daughter gets out uh, and starts talking for 5 minutes, explaining beautifully what is a game of squash. And in my head, I was like, "Thank God she did that because I can't explain it. I can't." I was thinking like, "What do you throw a ball at a wall and it comes?" I couldn't, and I realized that to be able to explain something to a child, I find it incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
It's like the way I explain is, you know what? I repeat. I just repeat the same thing 5 times. And then I realize it's a child. Speak louder.
Oh
Now I'm
my
loud
God.
and I'm saying the same thing and I become boring. The
That's the
point is,
thing.
like, I find it difficult to explain.
You're not equipped. You're not equipped
No.
to care about a child's emotional well
Let me give you an example and let's take her persona. I don't want to give names for
being.
security reasons, but let's take her persona. Let me give you an example. Let me tell you a persona of a 10-year-old. This girl came up to me and said, there is a certain boy in the class who's speaking badly of me and spreading rumors, and everybody else in the class who are my friends are now not talking to that boy because of this bad thing he's doing.
Mm.
So she said, hey man, I don't like what the others are doing because no matter what he did, He doesn't deserve to be treated this way.
Interesting. Wow.
This is a 10-year-old.
Very clever. Let's take the persona. So we'll first check why or what is going on in her mind. Then we'll say, you know, what should she be doing next? Now, this next steps are in, parallel to what she is already thinking about the boy and the situation. So we have two cards. And then there's this one final outcome card. Like, if she goes away and talks about this boy and shares with the friends, what's going to happen? Right. So this is the first card. That is the energy. She is conflicted, right? She is thinking about the situation in a way with both the things, carefully weighing both the options here. Right. Okay. This is one situation where should I go tell my friends to not do this, or should I just, you know, be with my friends because they're supporting me? So that conflict is her energy. She has very good intentions, Queen of Pentacles. I think she could be that person who holds everybody together, instead of disrupting things. And this also explains why she has this conflict, right? Because it's in her nature to be a family maker, to be this person who glues everyone. Now, the next steps for her would be Ace of Cups. Speak from a space of love, right? And from a space of love means that she should confront the friends and say, speak from a space of love. You know, let's just give it another chance, because the aces are new frequency, a new beginning. So let's just give this a new beginning. Let's keep everything at the back and start this. And if she does this, the final outcome is Eight of Cups, which means the friends are going to be a little sad and upset about it. But this is how she would learn choices. This is how she would learn the exchange of energy. If you give something, something will be gone, but you still chose something that you felt was right. You were still listening to your intuition. You were still guided.
Wow. I see a few people on my team who have fallen off the cameras or something. But wow, it's powerful. And I also say it's the conversation. It's the setup. It's the way I think you're setting people up for success.
It's, I mean, what I'm really trying to do is just make people realize that every individual, whether kid, adult, whatever organization is unique. And we say that, as a quote, as a good quote, but we don't really understand the value of the word unique.
I've been talking. I've been in this conversation for over an hour now, and the one thing that comes to me, um, very strongly is that you seem to have this deep faith in people.
I love people. I absolutely love people. I think I feel I just fall in love with people, and my understanding of love is
What kind of people? Like people who are good to you, or just
everyone. I just feel, I just see so much, because I think it's also because of my experience that I can really read through why they're doing what they're doing. There's this genuine empathy that just comes naturally. I don't have to try. And it's not like I'm trying to be good or chal badai. It's not that. It's genuine love that shows up because I know your struggles. I know what you've been through. And I think this experience of intimate conversations with people when they're absolutely vulnerable, everyone should experience that, not just with their friends and family, but when you just have this honest conversation with strangers, you would realize how it is changing you as a person. The kind of importance of compassion and love that it generates for you.
how would the life of a principal or teacher change if they even began
Hmm.
to start having this worldview that you have of genuinely loving people for who they are?
Yeah.
How
I
do you
think
think it would
the
change for them?
first thing that would happen is they would get away from a competition, right? And that's a very important thing, because you can only rise to the top if you're not following something like a template that hundreds of people have done in the past. The courage to really be different would be the first gift of this perspective, I feel. And once you have that, you would also realize that you're building something.
One sec. Did you say by having genuine unconditional love for everybody, you would get the courage to be different?
Yeah. Yeah. And that is because you know that nobody is going to do you harm, that nobody is going to do something that's going to harm your school reputation, etc., because it will always be in your control. You would always know how to steer this in a direction because your intentions are for the greater good of your kids, for the greater good of the student, for the greater good of the society. And once you have that perspective, nothing bad can really come to you. And this, I'm not speaking from a space of faith or even psychologically, because you'd be so empowered to make the next move that anything that is low frequency, which is lying, cheating, copying, etc., cunningness, all these things would kind of just surpass you. And you would want to do something that is of such great frequency, like a world changing point of view. I think that's the biggest gift, not limited to your current frequency. Just opens this wide. Uh,
It's such a great way to live.
it is. It is. And there is no loss. So I think there's nothing to lose here. There's nothing to lose. And when you are this person, you would see the enrollments increase. I guarantee you that. If you're watching this today, I am guaranteeing you that if you take this route, you would automatically see that people are just because energies speak, right? If you are speaking from a space of truth, from a space of honesty as an organization, you would see that people are just coming to you and they want their students to be enrolled in your classrooms. They want this teacher to take this class. And the students would say good things about you and to your parents. Your parents would say that to the principal. The principal was, it's all connected, right? And not just your career, your personal life, how you treat yourself, all of these are connected. Suits, and that is what uplifts you in your frequency.
This is beautiful. I want to take this conversation a little bit more about clear mind. What is clear mind? How did you think of therapy for all? Because therapy is expensive
Exactly.
and it's not available.
Yeah.
And not every therapist is a good therapist.
Yeah. So exactly the problem that I realized after reading for so many people. I got sad after every reading. There was this time when I'm like, how can I do more for them? Because I know they're gonna come back, they're gonna save up. I'm expensive. So they're gonna save up and they're gonna come back again. And it was a very personal thing for me to start something like this. So I started off with a community where we all, it's a community of 100 people on WhatsApp. We wake up every day at 5:30. We start talking. We meditate together, and then we start talking about intimate conversations about your life, and it's a safe space. And that is when I'm a very tech savvy person also. So I was an NFT trader, and I was into managing Discords, and I had this side hustle so that I'm always up in the game. So when ChatGPT launched, I was one of the full early adopters, and I started experimenting our conversation, whatever's happening in the group. I started pasting that there, be like generate a meditation script. And this was, I'm speaking about the time, I think it was September, right? When nobody knew about it. So I used to present that to these people, and they're like mind blown. They're like, did you write this? Like,
Yeah, I wrote the prompt.
yeah, kind of.
Which is very, very, very difficult as well.
Yeah. So, and that was my first experiment. And that the kind of impact that just this one thing had, it took me a while to really realize, is it that simple? I just wrote this one sentence and this was formed out of it. And I started building Clear Mind as a meditation tool for people. Because what happened in our meditation is I can't connect to that. क्योंकि वो मेरा नाम नहीं ले रहा है. It's not personalizing it for me. After a while, I'm like, ठीक है. But then when I started saying, Will, take a deep breath, you know, you are in your studio and you're imagining this podcast, it's going to be a hit. It's going to take you to places. So you're instantly like, hey, or bolo, right? So that's all happening with us. And then I realized that we need to make it into a full-fledged tool set of things that again incorporate other aspects of life, not just limited to meditation. We started having a clear mind MVP, which utilizes CBT in the back end. So I realized that I need this to go to people, and people are not spiritual or religious in nature. And I wanted to scale. So we brought in two psychologists who helped us build this tool. What they did in the back end is that they created, using psychometric tests, they created prompts that, identified what the person is feeling, if there is black and white thinking, what's happening, and then reframed their responses, presented back to them, just what tarot does, in a way that mirrors their own mind. And how can they really do better with that? And that took off. Like we got so viral. Like people started talking about it. Like this was the first time someone's listening to my inner voice, and someone, you just know it, and that started happening. And then we decided to kind of build it as a full-fledged web app. So what ClearMind does now is,
Like, when did you start it? How many people you had on your team when you built it?
oh
How many people are using it?
yeah, so right now we have 32,000 users on board, and yeah, we are present in 126 countries. We have a team of 6 people, and we have a retention of 30%. People coming back again and again, and we have over 98% positive feedback, and the 2% negative feedback is about technology not working.
This is all you.
This is me as a solo founder. So I genuinely just wanted to do it. I did not have any technical background, but I did have startup understanding. I knew humans, I know what they want, kind of build it together. Then right now also there is this team of interns who are building it, and they're
I
very
love how you say, I
talented.
know humans. ये human है. इसके human problems हैं. मेरा AI उसको solve करेगा.
यार सरप्राइजिंगली वो कर रहा है, मतलब क्योंकि मेरे लिए भी इनिशियली टू really believe कि a human को replace कर सकता है AI was very difficult. But after I started understanding that, hey, we live in a very privileged society where we get, even you, me speaking is a privilege in some countries. Say I have now, because of the war, I have people from Iran, I have people from Israel, I have people from Gaza, in fact, who are coming on the platform, and they're sharing what's happening. And of course, we can't read the entries, but the kind of feedback that they put in, and I know this is creating a difference. And that is what keeps me going. That is what is the best thing about how it's scaling and what's happening here is, when someone says that, you know, AI empathy made me cry, like, and I think that this is saving my life. This is the only tool that I'm coming back again and again. I don't want to stop that, you know. And yeah, I feel all these 32,000, in what's happening with me, the problem is that it's a company in the end. You need to grow it, you need to have these numbers. For me, these are 32,000 human beings, and how everyone else sees it is 32 users. This is exactly that. So that's the transition that I'm making from being an empath to being an entrepreneur, and also talking numbers and finance. So yeah, I think that's one challenge that I'm facing right now. But other than that, I just feel this is taking off. It's already taken off, and it has a lot of potential.
I think you and I should build
Oh, I'm all
build
all
something for
game.
students.
Yeah, I'm all game.
Because every time a child wants to talk about something, it doesn't mean he needs to be referred to a counselor.
Yeah, that's the problem that we're tackling also with Clear Mind, right? So, you know, as per the UN report, if there are 8 people here, right, there is one person who's going through a serious mental health crisis, as per the
One
UN.
in 8?
1 in 8. And mental health crisis aisa ki they are suicidal in nature. And we don't
Is
have,
that it's that prominent?
and there is
It's
only
that
one
prevalent? It's
person for 40 lakh people in need. 40 lakh, not even
you mean
40,000.
40 lakh people
One
have one
psychiatrist.
mental health
Yeah.
professional.
So the gap that you see is so huge, right? That कितने भी बच्चे तुम पढ़ा लो, psychiatric बना लो या जो भी है, they would not be able to really tackle everyone at once, right? And AI kind of changes that for you immediately at a global scale. You are here, you are, in Afghanistan, you're sitting there, you are probably a homemaker who has no access to anything but just your phone. And you're going through things that you can't speak about, you're not allowed to speak about. And you're using this application where you're just sharing in your own language. ClearMind accepts 99 languages. So you can just talk your heart out, and it analyzes your voice, it analyzes your expression, your emotion, your language, and then presents you a solution that you can do immediately. It can also connect you to the right therapist. And these therapists don't necessarily have to be psychiatrists, they can be coaches who are helping people to feel better instantly. So that's the vision that we have, where we want to integrate human intervention with AI, but for people who genuinely need help. And everything else, you can track your mental fitness like you're tracking. Everyone's now going to the gym. Fitness, physical fitness is like the in thing. But when would mental fitness be thought about in that same manner? And that's the vision that I have of their mind, is that I want everyone to think that mental fitness is cool. I am not doing so well. I want people to be proud of their emotions. And only then is when they can make a change in their lifestyle, in their relationships, in their career, etc. So what we're trying to do is reduce the number of the gap between people who need immediate help, reduce that number. So yeah.
This is such a brilliant use case about how AI can be there for people at a time of need. I know so many case studies of helplines, suicide prevention helplines, and child abuse helplines, and uh, destitute women helplines. And for all the people who would say it's just a phone call, what's a phone call going to do? A phone call has
Save lives.
saved lives.
I interviewed Telemanas is basically India's hotline, right, for mental health. And you can just call the number 24/7 available, and it's free. It's by the government. So I spoke to Dr. Naveen Kumar, who's leading this initiative, and he told me that it's crazy how much we've grown in just 9 months. It's unreal. And 300 crores have been set apart for just mental health well-being by the government of India. And that itself says that how important it is for us to really tackle this situation right now. And everyone is doing it. Everyone is, on board. So it was a state initiative, but all the states are on board. They've all started the centers, physical centers, along with 24/7. And there are training programs that are happening for, people who are interested in helping other people, because that gap has to be filled somewhere. So yeah, I think
I
with
think every teacher needs to become a barefoot mental health
100%. I think
counselor.
this needs to be a part of the training to become a teacher. This has to be there, because you are what you're doing is, genuinely creating a mind, right, from scratch. You're feeding it behavior patterns, you're feeding it emotions, you're giving it direction to grow. And you need to know if you're doing the right thing, if you're doing it in the best way possible.
But thank you for laying it all out like this, and really sharing your gift, your craft, and sharing the message of hope for teachers and students and for school leaders, and really just getting, if people are listening to this conversation at this point, I think really for them to start beginning to consider different ways and means of getting success into their children, into their schools, into their systems. I think there is tremendous responsibility that the institution of education has. And there's even more responsibility because we're dealing with the weakest. When by weakest I mean the youngest children, the youngest people, so youngest members of our society are in our care, and we need to be there for them, and we need to be the reason for them to succeed and thrive in this world that is really changing and growing. And I think most of the principles, I think 50 to 70% of principles are probably science and math people who may not necessarily be open to something. I invite them to consider. I invite every single teacher, educator, parent, and a principal who's listening to our conversation, who's currently with us today, who's a co-traveler in this conversation, to get out there and download Clear Mind Plus, so that they have someone to talk to, they have somebody to share their feelings, and get the feedback that they require, that'll jump them into action, because they have to they're the only source of hope and courage and strength that their teams have. At least in India, leaders have way too much responsibility than I think they should. And I think, and I think that they should be able to use that. So I really invite everybody to download your app, Clear Mind Plus,
Yes.
and I hope more and more people benefit from this incredible experience. How can people follow you?
You can follow me on Instagram. Curious Berry is my Insta handle.
Curious Berry, yeah?
Curious.
Curious Berry is your Insta handle, and you're also on LinkedIn
I am on LinkedIn as Anika Beri. You can.
as Anika Berry.
But
Thank you, Anika. Is there anything you want to say before
yes,
you? Okay.
I do want to say. I want to say that well, you're doing an incredible job, um, not just as an educator, but I think these elements that you add, the podcast, I think very few people have that courage, and I think this translates that very nicely. You know that you're very centric, people centric, and I think that's the approach that's going to change it at a larger level. So please continue doing this. You know, please be open to being surprised. And yeah, I think you're on the right path. So thank you so much for giving me this platform also to bring this out to the world. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, team.